Today we are talking about attached cushions such as you might see on an ottoman. Once you're comfortable with a boxed and welted cushion, this is a great next project to challenge your skills. If you've never sewed a cushion, you want to make sure that you master that first because it has all its own challenges and tricks. But once you're comfortable with that, an attached cushion isn't so different. It just has a very specially designed bottom panel, which is what we're going to create today. The first piece we are going to plan and start to construct is what I'll call our nosing, and that's the sleeve that slides over our frame and attaches to our cushion. So as you can see, it's got a seam in each corner and it's mitered to come around underneath and meet our cushion. So let's walk over to our frame and I'll show you where we started. Now our frame happens to be square, so we'll just look at one side. Measuring from corner to corner, we can see it's 23 inches. So we are going to cut rectangles for each side. This is 24 inches, which gives me a ½ inch seam allowance on each corner. No more, no less. This has to fit very precisely when I slide it over the frame because I won't be able to adjust at any of those sewn corners. And then I'm tall enough, I went 10½ inches, which gives me room to come about 4 inches under the cushion, all the way around my rail, and 2 to 3 inches around the bottom. So I'm going to start with 4 rectangles, and then we'll go ahead and we'll mark out for that miter in the corner. Here is one of our side panels. You can see we have it marked nosing. That tells me what piece it is, and it tells me what the bottom edge is. The next thing I'm going to do is give myself some center notches, which are going to be fairly important on this particular design later, for us to get everything lined up nice. So just a little notch, and we'll do one on the bottom as well, just for funsies. That one's a little less important. All right, then I have to mark for our miter in the corner, and I'm just going to go 3½ inches in, 3½ inches down, to connect those. With our miters cut in, we are ready to start sewing our nosing together. And I do mean start because eventually we're going to stitch along this whole seam. That's our corner and that's our miter. But for now, the only thing that I want to sew is just that miter portion. I'm not going to head down this leg at all. Once they're all 4 sewn, we'll come back here and we'll steam those open. Now this is the piece that our nosing will sew onto and attach to the frame, and right now I have it cut to finish just about a ½ inch bigger than the frame itself. So this is cut 24½, and when we join these two pieces together, one of the tricks with an attached cushion ottoman is this cushion landing squarely on top of the frame. This corner needs to line up exactly with our miter or we'll never get it on there straight. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is notch all my centers, just like we did on the nosing. The next thing I like to do is to use those center notches to actually lightly draw center lines across my panel. And I'll use chalk so I can blow this out, though it's possible by the time I'm done wrestling everything together, this will just have brushed itself off. Now here's the really critical step. Lining all these pieces up. What I should find is that my corners also line up. So when I finish sewing this, the corner of my cushion is going to land right on top of my mitered nosing. And if it doesn't line up, there's nothing I can do later with a staple gun to force it to match. So take your time, multiple reference points here, right? Because even though sometimes we think we've marked something square, just like doors or picture frames or anything else, sometimes they aren't as square as they appear to be. So by marking centers and checking my corners, I should be able to make sure that my pieces are landing accurately. And I don't do a whole lot of pinning in the upholstery shop, if I'm being honest, but this is one that I definitely want to pin into place so that it doesn't move when I bring it over to the sewing machine. Once that's all pinned together, we're ready to take this over to the sewing machine, and we're just going to stitch these two layers together with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, we have our nosing and our cushion panel joined together, and we're going to add one more layer in here, and that's this piece that we're going to call a stretcher. That will get stitched right along that same line, and the purpose of this piece is that once it's stitched together and we go to put this on here, we'll use that stretcher to pull and staple before adding an edge roll and whatever other padding that we use to build this edge up, and then our nosing will come over all of that and attach down to the frame. So that stretcher being in there will just help us anchor the cushion a little more securely into the frame. So my stretchers are cut long enough to go from corner to corner and far enough that they're going to reach over the edge of my frame, and I can get in there and staple. And I just grabbed a scrap of upholstery fabric under the table. It's a great place to use up leftover remnants. We just want something that's going to be sturdy and true, nothing too stretchy, nothing too ravelly. I'm going to go ahead and notch the centers on these as well, because that's going to help me later when we go to put this on the frame to make sure that everything is sitting square. Cushion squarely on top of nosing, squarely on top of frame. All right, one thing we haven't talked about yet is how we're going to fill this cushion once it is finished. So typically with a box and welted cushion, we put a zipper panel in the back against the chair, which makes sense because that's the least visible place, and then we can take our insert in and out. But on this particular ottoman design, that cushion is exposed from all sides, so it makes more sense for us to fill the cushion through the bottom, which is never going to be exposed again. So what's nice is that this does not have to be particularly attractive. We are the only people who are ever going to see this access point and the only people who are ever going to use it. So if you wanted to, you wouldn't even necessarily have to put a zipper. You often pull these apart and they may have just been cut to put the cushion in and then hand stitched closed. You may not believe this if you're new to making zippers, however, they are actually faster once you get the hang of them, faster than cutting that panel open and whip stitching it shut. So we are going to put a zipper in here, and I'm going to go ahead and put this diagonally here because that's going to give me the longest access point. Sometimes you even see them make a U shape there, but we're going to go right across the center here, and I'm going to show you a really easy, fast way to do this, which actually one of our students introduced this to. I used to do this a little more complicated, but This is really slick. So I'm going to lay that right across here. I have my zipper tab on, and I'm just going to roughly mark where I want the edges of that to go. I'm not going to be excessively particular here again because I'll use this zipper once, maybe twice, if I have to take that insert out and putter around with it a little bit. But that will be the only time that this zipper is ever seen or used. So let's take this over to the sewing machine and take a look at what we're doing. So normally when we do our zippers, we run our zipper chain right through that welt part of our foot. So I haven't changed to a zipper foot. If you like swapping out for you, absolutely can. I do most things with a single welt foot. But that stitches us right next to our zipper chain, which is great for some things, but in this case, I'm actually going to move this over and run my inside edge of the foot right along the zipper chain. So I am stitching a little further from that zipper opening itself. And I can use the foot as a guide and just zip along here. And if it moves a little bit on my chalk line, that's okay. This is not going to be a visible zipper. We just need a way to put our cushion insert in. Once my zipper is stitched into place, I can just unzip it and we can see where we need to create an opening to fill our cushion. Now that just might be the ugliest zipper in the history of upholstery, but it doesn't matter because we just need to use it as an access point once or twice. So we're really more interested in what's efficient and what's going to be functional. Now I should mention that this works fairly well for us because we have this commercial grade fabric from Fabric Supply, which has a nice backing and it's not going to want to ravel there. But if I had a ravelly fabric, this might not be the best way to put a zipper in there because, of course, this is just a raw edge that we've just cut open. So you may find places where you have to problem solve and you have to put a little more effort into how you're going to fill your cushion, but use your common sense and use your problem solving skills and employ any which way that feels comfortable and makes sense to you to create an access point in your bottom panel so that once this is all sewn together, you can actually put a cushion insert into it. So at long last, with our miters sewed in and all our pieces lined up, our stretchers in, our zipper so that we can fill it, we're finally ready to go back here and finish sewing our nosing closed. So for each of these corners, I'm going to get my top panel out of the way. I'm going to line these up. I'm going to pick up where I left off, back stitch, and sew my way all the way down to the bottom corner. So let's take it over to the sewing machine and see what that looks like. All right, that is our finished bottom panel that's going to make this attached cushion work. You can see all our components in there, our cushion panel, our zipper, our nosing, and our stretcher. And I hope you can appreciate now, seeing it in 3D, why it's so nice to just start that nosing and get everything lined up before you actually finish it. But if we dotted all our I's and crossed all our T's, this guy now should slide onto our frame are going with this project. If you are comfortable with boxed and welted cushions, hopefully you'll be comfortable taking this the rest of the way. If not, do be sure to check out our separate video, how to sew a boxed and welted cushion. You're going to want to make a good number of those before you add on the additional challenge of an attached cushion version.